Happy Taper's Eve.
I'm in a good taper mood today.
Are you really?
Yes.
I don't feel like the tantrums have set in yet for me.
Well, okay. I'm making a strong distinction between the tantrums, which I'm experiencing in my piriformis.
Ass tantrums.
Yes, which is why if you're viewing this on YouTube, we are
We are standing up right now.
a standing desk for this current podcast because my butt hurts.
And you can't sit. Well, you don't sit during an ultra.
No, but it's hurting while I'm standing right now. And
It's not what you want.
No, it's not. And it's only the left side, which is annoying because throughout this build,
Ass half full.
it's been left and right. And now I'm like, why can't the left
like
just
alternate.
leave me alone?
That's hilarious.
Right? At least it's not one side. At
Yeah.
least,
It's
now
going
it's
back
one
and
side.
forth. They're like passing it back and forth.
Yeah, it's great.
Sorry,
it's
I'm
wonderful.
making fun of your ass pain.
Well, hopefully I can get a last minute PT appointment in this week.
Yeah, before you
amidst-
have to sit on an airplane for 8 hours.
I could not sit for any of my athlete calls today.
Yeah.
I tried for the last one because my legs were so tired from standing.
Yeah.
And, well, that's the reason why we're standing now.
It also does feel good. I have scoliosis and like back issues, so it does feel nice to stand up.
I just can't stand still. I have
Yeah.
to go from one leg to the other.
I feel like I can do really good diaphragmatic breathing in this position, so I'm going to be even louder than normal.
Okay. Well, we digress here. Taper tantrums.
Standing desks, hot or not.
Very hot. Very
Yeah,
hot.
I'm hot on
My
standing
runs
desks.
have felt good. My recovery runs have improved by like 40 seconds a mile. That's how fatigued I was.
Wow.
For a while there.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is what fresh
I know.
legs feel like. Let's
I've had
go.
to really work on holding myself back
Oh, that's
from
nice.
like on recovery days because I'm like, oh, that is faster. Like, I mean, it still feels like RPE appropriate, but I am holding back because like there is still like the like reality of gravity and like muscular and skeletal breakdown
Yeah.
when you're going harder than purely easy.
So we're going to Italy on Saturday
We
to
are.
race this long 75-mile race.
Yeah, don't worry, podcast listeners. I still have 2 episodes scheduled for you. We will still have content drip dropping out while we're gone.
Oh my gosh, what
and
would
if
we
you
do?
follow us on YouTube, go ahead and give us a follow on the podcast app of your choice to get audio episodes because they are not video episodes that I have coming out.
Ooh.
So, sorry, YouTube.
You know, God forbid we could survive this world without content for a couple weeks.
What will the people do without TJ and Zoe
We'll
content?
give the people what they want. Some less colorful conversation around training. What are we getting into today?
We're going to do some hot or nots. Then we are going to talk about why you feel tired in the back half of a race. All the different
Yeah.
reasons. I think this is something I talk about with athletes a lot. And people, I think what is fun about this discussion is it's a big question, really. Like, there's a lot of things that can make you feel tired or make the last, like, if it's an ultra, that make those last, like, 25 maybe miles feel terrible. If it's a 50K, maybe the last 5 miles. If it's a marathon, those last couple miles. There's a lot of reasons that happens. And oftentimes I see athletes when they try to answer that question, they go to the solution that they like. Like it's strength training or it's more volume. And that may not be wrong, but the answer is almost always it depends and it's more complicated than that.
Oh my gosh. What if it was psychological? Or
It could be.
what if you pace too fast in the first half of
Also
the race?
could be. There's a lot of reasons these things happen.
I'm excited to get into that. Let's warm up here. I don't know. I've been talking a ton today, so I feel like I'm already ready to just fire off
You're ready
on
to
these
go.
hot or nots.
Were you just practicing on your athletes in your one-to-one face-to-face calls?
No, I was trying to ask questions and be a good listener.
I love that. All right. So first one for you, Coach TJ, AI-powered training plans.
Oh man, I feel like we're just at the beginning of what we're going to see in the coaching space on
Yeah.
these. I'm going to go and say not hot. And the reasoning for that is AI doesn't have a soul. AI doesn't have a heart. AI can't replace the human experience.
Yeah.
Okay, I say that knowing that I've heard some what are to me some pretty unpopular opinions around this, and maybe I'm just delusioned. But people do believe AI can have those human-like characteristics and things. But I think to be human means that you're capable of love. And I don't understand how a machine without a heart and a soul can be capable of that. So I don't know.
Wow.
I'm not hot on this.
Yeah.
I've thought a lot about it actually, just because like my job is coaching.
Right. This
So-
is something I think about a lot because I use AI and for fact checking and for outlining art, like for just various things, for helping me sort emails and random administrative tasks. So I am pretty big on using AI to do things that help me be more productive, but I think you're right. And I think it really, I think my answer here is it depends.
Right.
Don't take my job, robots, if you're listening. But oftentimes when I'm working one-on-one with clients, yes, they value the specific feedback I'm giving them, but they also just genuinely value that it's coming from a person. So
Yeah.
that same feedback coming from what they would know is an AI wouldn't be as valuable because of how they value it, not because of the actual quality of the feedback necessarily. But to speak to the quality of the feedback, a model is only as good as what it's trained on. And this is something that I've even noticed when I've tried to use AI to sort of check different things for research in terms of when we will be putting together a podcast outline, I'll try to have AI summarize something and it'll get a lot of shit wrong. It keeps talking about the 10% rule. There's a lot of bad information on the internet and AI loves all of it. So, it is yes, again, it depends on the model, but in general, a lot of these broad models are just not that good right now. And AI is not that great at it can still get a lot of things wrong. And when it's pulling from the cesspool that is running advice on the internet, it is going to get a lot of things wrong.
I don't know if people have seen this, Coop AI. So Jason Coop, who is a well-known coach in the space, author of 2 editions of Trail Running Essentials.
Essentials for ultra running.
Essentials for ultra running.
Good book.
He has his own version of AI coaching, and it's based on his voice and his coaching, methodology, which probably I'm just assuming is similar to what he talks about in the book, which is, it's a good tool. Is it the only way to coach? No, but it's a good tool. I don't know. I would be curious if listeners out there have ever tried something like this and whether it's effective for them.
When I was at Outside Magazine, and this was about a year ago, but we had a journalist train for the Boston Marathon using an AI training program, and it didn't go very well because the AI was not very good at update, even though he was feeding his biometric data, like heart rate variability, also trying to give it qualitative feedback. He felt like it was overtraining him, and it was really poor at adapting the plan to fit into his life. So it was not able to have I don't know, when I have an athlete text me and they're I was up all night with my sick kid and I have to go to work early. Should I try to do that threshold run? It's usually not me just randomly making cutting something out or moving things around. We usually have a discussion. We stop, we pause. I'm how are you actually feeling?
Right.
What feels right to you? And it's not because I'm trying to be Socratic or pedantic. It's because the most important training decisions should always be a dialogue, and it can be hard to have the appropriate dialogue with an AI model. So,
well, and that's super interesting because that kind of brings me to a hallmark of good coaching is that coaching leads athletes to independence. So if AI is an oracle for all the answers, I feel this, and then AI gives the prescription.
Yeah.
Rather in a good coaching situation, the coach should, how do you feel, or what do you think you should do? Presenting the idea back to the athlete so they can have agency over their situation. I mean, AI could learn to do that.
Yeah, and I think it will, but again, I think that humans still value knowing that a thing comes from a human. That's why the majority of our athletes are in the journey tier and pay to do hour-long face-to-face conversations with us, because that is the thing that we have found that clients value most of all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. This is all hypothetical. I don't know enough, and I don't think we know enough about what AI is capable of. Although we're starting to
Yes.
get an idea, but like,
But I think
AI
it's
will
fair to say
only-
right now, like, there's really not a lot of evidence that AI is that great at. I think, like, it's better than, like, a cookie cutter training plan, but only barely.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking about the human side of this, like those conversations.
Yeah.
Like AI will only have like a proxy for feelings.
It can mimic feelings,
Yeah.
but it can't actually give you confidence. It can't coach you towards true independence. It can't help you understand true motivation. It can feed you all the scripts and like put together the right string of words about motivation, but like the coach athlete interaction is alchemy. It is more than stringing words together. It is more than putting together the perfect cookie cutter plan. It is like where we like the science becomes art, and that's where you and I really try to operate with our clients. And like not everyone values that, and that's fine. Some people like they just want to like go do their thing. They don't really want flexibility. They're not like that invested in the training. Like they don't, I don't know, like maybe they don't need that. For me, like I want a coach that really fucking gets excited to coach me.
Right.
I want someone who wakes up and is like, I know this person's gonna execute at a high level and I can't fucking wait to put pen to paper because I know they're gonna go do this in the real world and I am confident it will make them better.
Yeah.
That's what I want. And I want it to be a person.
AI
I value that.
AI is not going to be up at night thinking about, you know, the outcomes that
Yeah.
their athletes are working towards and whether they get them or not.
Correct.
And it's that human side of things that, you know, I think the coaching industry needs to continue to move more towards.
Correct. Because like it's not just the training
Yeah,
plan.
like AI is great. It can analyze data really fast. But again, does it have the heart and soul of knowing that you've got somebody
Yeah.
who like really cares about you?
If I could get the Scarlett Johansson AI from the movie Her to coach me, though,
I don't know about what that would be like.
be cute, it'd be hot. I would like it.
Okay, all right.
So, all right,
Live tracking, hot or not?
yeah, let's tie a bow around that AI conversation, and I feel like it's one that we'll come back to because that technology is evolving really quickly. But again, like it just comes down to what the client values, and we find that the clients we work with value human connection. So we'll continue to provide top fucking notch human connection. So if you want to connect with the human, microcosm. Anyway, I digress. Live tracking during races. So I like the UTMB live tracking because I found it to be very accurate.
I know.
And I
Just
dislike almost all other live tracking because it will be inaccurate and then it will make me very anxious when I am tracking you.
So not hot. You're not hot on this.
No, I mean, I'm glad it exists, but like, I mean, I can just name so many times where I've been like tracking you, either I'm crewing you or like, I remember last year when you were running Lake Sonoma and I was tracking you from across the country, one of the aid station things didn't ping and it looked like you had gone from being in like fourth place to potentially DNFing. And I was like texting Kylie, freaking out. Like I was on a long run and I like fucking paused my watch because I was like, oh no, like something's wrong with TJ and I'm not there. It's the first time I'm not there to crew and it's all my fault that he's DN. And like you were fine. It was not you were on the podium. It was great. Like
Minus
good time. Yeah.
being hyperthermic at the end of
well,
the race.
you know, minus that. But
No DNFs.
you know, race tracking is, or like live tracking is great when it works and not that great when it doesn't work. How's
Yeah.
that for an answer?
It's not. I don't know. It's really tough. Like I have the same experience tracking you.
Yeah.
I'm like, why isn't this picking up? Why didn't
Yeah.
it go through at that, you know, aid station?
Yeah.
The UTMB one though seems to be super accurate.
Yeah.
In like the projected times.
Dude, the UTMB
Scary
projected
good.
times,
Scary good.
you were within like 3-4 minutes of each projected time, which is amazing.
All right. Caffeine taper / caffeine detox.
So this is kind of two different things, and I'm going to sort of lay them out. So there's a theory that if you taper your caffeine consumption before doing like a big, like maybe like a Barkley, like, or Backyard Ultra 100-mile, like multi-day event, that you'll be more sensitive to it. And the research there is pretty limited in supporting that. And actually a lot of it suggests that you will be slightly more sensitive to caffeine if you do a caffeine taper and then consume caffeine on race day. But there's a lot of trade-offs in terms of you have to taper off caffeine for quite a while, and you will actually see diminished performance during that period, both physically and cognitively. So a lot of times it really comes out in the wash, and it's kind of more of a hack than something that I feel is the evidence suggests this gives you a real performance benefit. Also, I fucking love coffee, and you will have to pry it out of my cold, dead, caffeinated hands. And then in terms of a caffeine quote-unquote detox, I hate the word detox because what the fuck does that mean? There's no definition of what that is. There's no definition of what a toxin is. So therefore,
it implies
detox,
that caffeine
it's a
is
toxin,
a toxin,
which it's not. It is an addictive substance, and it is my favorite addictive substance.
You're good at caffeine.
I am good at caffeine. Thank you.
Wow,
I feel like I've been waiting my whole life to hear that.
4 caffeinated gels an hour.
Well, no longer.
19
I have
hours.
a strategy now. But
Let the people never forget.
Yeah. So there's also not a lot of evidence, on the whole, right? Individual response to caffeine varies widely. You're a fast metabolizer of caffeine. I'm a pretty slow metabolizer, so I'm pretty sensitive to it, and it stays in my system for a long time. We know that over-consuming caffeine can make you feel jittery, can lead to GI issues, so we definitely don't want to over-consume caffeine. That's not good. But there's also not a lot of strong evidence to support cutting out caffeine entirely unless you have a health issue that is exacerbated by caffeine, or if you have anxiety, jitters, things that caffeine genuinely makes worse. I feel like a lot of the biohack productivity edgelords on Instagram are all about don't do caffeine and do your cold plunge, and there's no evidence that there's any benefit to cutting out caffeine. If you're addicted to it, you're allowed to remain addicted to it.
I really liked Michael Pollan's deep dive into caffeine detox.
Yep.
And just how he really struggled with it, and then ultimately came to the conclusion that it's just better to have that cup of coffee because I feel more productive, and this kind of supercharges my day in the right way. And whatever the cons were to hit the research that he had done into it in the article, it kind of described some pretty solid reasons for maybe why you wouldn't want to have a lot of caffeine.
Yeah.
And he was just
right.
no,
you don't want to have a lot or too much, for sure.
It was just nope, it's just totally, my life is better if I have that cup of coffee.
Yeah, correct. If you're not, if you're having sleep issues, it could be worth looking at your caffeine consumption and timing. If you're drinking a carafe a day, might want to look into that, or a full French press. But if you have if you're drinking moderate to low amounts of caffeine, that's pretty okay. Energy drinks, not that healthy. I do encourage athletes to not do the energy drink thing. Those are pretty gnarly for you. Not good for your heart long term. And also, they have a lot of things in them that I don't necessarily recommend for athletes.
My take is that caffeine tapers are not hot. It's just there's not any evidence to really support the fact that you're going to then be a caffeine super responder on race day.
Yeah.
And then the irritability, the possible headaches.
It does increase the chances of you having GI distress on race day, though. So
well, that would be great.
Fireworks. Let's go. Wrong kind of sensitivity. Not what you want.
My recommendation is don't change any routines that you have normally before a race.
Yes. Right amount of caffeine, good. Too much caffeine, bad. Cutting out caffeine, no real benefit.
All right. Nasal breathing and mouth taping. What the hell? See, I don't even know what mouth taping is.
This is something.
Hot or not?
I feel like this is something, again, I'm online a lot, especially doing research for Your Diet Sucks, but a lot of folks in the biohacking space will tape their mouths at night.
State.
But I mean, this is something I feel like this is a question I get a lot from athletes is should I try to breathe through my nose?
Sure. See that question all the time.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And short answer, no. Long answer, no, but let's look at the science.
Not hot.
So mouth taping, taping your mouth at night is mostly studied in the context of sleep and not athletic performance. Like there's not a single study showing that mouth taping improves athletic performance. So there are some really small studies that suggest it might reduce snoring and mild sleep apnea. But experts do warn against using it without medical guidance, especially if you have nasal obstruction. So even the evidence in terms of that improving sleep quality and overall like breathing health and whatnot is like really, really limited and not something we would promote at all. Yeah, so and then to speak to the nasal breathing thing, I think this is something that, like, again, kind of falls into the realm of biohacking, or like newer runners will be like, is it okay to breathe through my mouth on easy runs? And like,
right. Well, there's this weird.
I always breathe through my mouth when I'm running.
There's this weird information out there. I don't know if it's on like Reddit or somewhere where people
I feel like it's all over
read.
Reddit
It's
and
like
Instagram.
a sign that you're running easy is that you can breathe through your nose.
Correct.
And you only breathe through your nose, and so you want to do nasal breathing as like that's how you know you're going easy. We know that's not true. There's many other markers of running easy. The talk test is one of the most obvious ones.
Yep.
But okay, what does the science say?
So there's no conclusive evidence that nasal breathing significantly improves running performance in trained athletes. Studies on mouth taping and nasal breathing are really limited and inconclusive in terms of athletic gains or recovery gains. And nasal breathing can limit oxygen intake during hard efforts, which makes it impractical for racing or running, even in like right above zone 1.
I just breathe through every.
Yeah, this is something that I feel like there are like, it's a great idea on paper because like, yes, like when you breathe through your nose, it filters things out better, but like you're running, you know, like filtration is not exactly the priority here. And again, there's just no real evidence that shows that it improves running performance. An imperfect, but I think helpful heuristic I like to use is like, are they doing it in the Tour de France?
Yeah.
Because like those guys will try fucking anything and they will spend any amount of money to improve performance. And there's no one on the Tour de France nasal breathing.
I haven't seen a single guy with duct tape on their mouth in the Peloton.
Exactly. And they will do, like, I'm sure there's guys injecting rhino blood. They'll do anything.
Haven't seen a lot of nasal strips out there either.
I feel like you see some nasal strips on the tour.
Have you watched that latest Netflix series?
With Lance?
No.
Or the Unchained?
Unchained.
I've seen parts of it. What's the nose strip percentage?
Not a lot of strips.
Low nose strip percentage. I think that's good.
A lot of carbs, though.
I think that's important evidence to keep a handle on.
Very important. You know, each strip is $3.
That's true. I am too sweaty to use a nose strip ever. I've like tried it during workouts and I like can't even keep it on. I don't know what my this is so gross. Maybe my face is just too slippery.
No, I think people glue it on. That's my
I would have to. And I've gotten like the clinical strength ones because like I do sometimes snore.
$5 a strip.
Yes. And my little nose is just too greasy, my T-zone. Like the lady at the Clinique counter said.
Oh my god.
All those years ago.
All right. Let's get into the main topic for the day. Why do I slow down in the second half of a race?
Yeah, so let's talk about the problem of fading in the second half of your race. And again, I think this discussion is helpful for races of all distances. Maybe a little less thinking like 5K, 10K. We don't coach a lot of folks that's their primary event. We mostly coach marathoners and endurance runners with the additional gravel bike rider and skimo athlete. And some of these ideas are applicable there as well.
Yeah,
but
totally.
Why do so many runners start strong but struggle to maintain pace? So we'll talk about the difference between positive splits, even pacing, and negative splits, and we'll understand what kind of fatigue is slowing you down and why it's important to know what's slowing you down so you can fix it. And we'll do an overview of the three major types of fatigue, which is physiological, which is muscular and metabolic fatigue, fueling and hydration, so that's energy depletion, gut issues, dehydration, and mental fatigue, so psychological barriers and pacing mistakes.
Awesome.
But let's first start with the physiological and what happens when your body physically hits its limit.
All right, so when we have muscle fatigue and breakdown, that's what we're talking about here. Cause, microscopic muscle damage from eccentric loading. This is especially true in those hilly races.
Yep.
All of that downhill running. This can happen in a marathon. It can happen in a half marathon. It can happen
Boston
in
is
the
especially
Boston
gnarly
Marathon.
for this.
So it's not limited to just running on trail. This can totally happen in road racing too. But with all that downhill running, there's a lot more eccentric loading. And so then the muscles take on damage and it causes fatigue and breakdown. What are some of the obvious signs of that?
So that's going to feel like heavy legs, a lot of soreness, and reduced power output. But you might feel like you have enough energy, but your legs feel flat, they feel dead, or our ongoing joke is that your quads are blown.
Yeah, blown quads.
Which I think many of us know what it's like to have your quads feel blown.
Yeah. It's a lot of
And it doesn't feel good.
lack of neuromuscular control.
Yes, yeah. So some solutions for this are strength training, especially eccentric loading to get ready for downhill running. So doing things like backward stepping lunges, those like and jumping down from a box. Eccentric loading, very useful for helping with this. And gradual mileage increases and long run progression. The more miles you are able to adapt to and run in training, the less stressful those final miles in a race will be. It's practice, right? Like the more we stress the body in training so that it adapts. And if the body has already gone through significant stress in training with adequate adaptation, then the race day stimulus is going to be a little less stressful. So a lot of times, like when your legs are feeling hurty at the end of the race, it can be tough to identify exactly what it is. And if it's something that we need to address through strength training or through just like more training volume in general, or maybe, more downhill running, or maybe even better recovery strategies to facilitate soft tissue recovery. So improving your protein intake, improving sleep, improving that mobility work. If you have like really stiff ankle joints, that's going to set you up for a world of hurt for everything above your ankles while you're running, and also things below your ankles. Honestly, having stiff joints is not going to feel good. So mobility is very, very helpful.
Yeah, I think maybe last word on this with the downhill running, the eccentric loading and the duration for adaptations in that area happens very quickly because it's very high stress.
Yeah.
So, for strong downhill sessions can really make a difference in preparing you for those demands in a race. And I think a lot of this goes back to training specificity.
Yeah.
Like if your training specificity doesn't match your race, then you're setting yourself up to have challenges in the second half of that race.
Correct.
So make sure your training meets the demands of that race. It's a steep race. Run the downhills in your training maybe even a little harder than you would during the race in order to elicit that muscle soreness after the session, which leads to the durability factor that causes your muscles to adapt. That stress, that breakdown, the body adapts to that over a few sessions, and then you'll be much more better off at the race.
Exactly. So now let's talk about lactate accumulation and muscle acidosis. You don't want acidosis in your muscles.
What is the cause of this?
So this is if you run too fast too early and you cause your lactate levels to spike. So that's going to feel like burning legs, difficulty holding pace, labored breathing. I see this a lot at the start of UTMB races where everyone is really excited and wants to avoid the bottleneck.
So much
and then
acidosis.
they hit lactate threshold within the first 5 minutes of UTMB. And then you still got a long way to go with lactate in your legs.
And for our marathon runners, this is just going off the start line a little too hot.
Yep.
Not being more in that zone 2, low zone 3.
Yeah.
And you pay for it later.
Yeah. I would encourage people to go back and listen to our episode about lactate threshold, because there is always this misconception that it's like lactic acid that causes the burning. That's not a thing. Lactate can be used as fuel if you have been training to use it as fuel by doing lactate threshold training. But if you are running at or above lactate threshold, the pH balance of your muscles will change, and that's when you get muscle acidosis, and that's when, oh boy, things hurt and your legs are burning and you can't maintain the pace and your breathing is out of control.
So I always advise athletes to keep those first 30 to 40 minutes of the race really in check.
Yeah.
Go a little bit easier than you think you should, and even spend some time like in your pre-race visualization, visualizing yourself going at your pace.
Yes.
Nice and relaxed, not responding to someone running past you that's going to then cause you to run faster. Like really working on that like first 30 to 40 minutes, being there in your actual race plan, on your effort, on your pace, running your plan. Tempo runs and threshold training, obviously they're going to help to improve this. And then practicing race pace and long runs helps to build some resilience. So building some workouts into your long runs,
Yep.
and then running tired in a more fatigued state after those workouts can really help to build that durability up.
Yeah. If you want to get better at clearing lactate from your system, you need to accumulate lactate and then practice clearing it. Let's talk about neuromuscular fatigue and coordination loss. So this is like central nervous system fatigue, and basically the way that your brain communicates with your muscles, the whole system's getting a little bit tired. So this is when your brain essentially is struggling to send signals to your muscles efficiently. So those signs are going to feel like when your form totally devolves, you're tripping, your feet are like catching on rocks and stuff, you have really slow leg turnover potentially during a road race. And there are some solutions for this. And I mean, the simplest one is just like train more. And that doesn't mean overtrain, but like accumulate years of training.
Right.
I know that's like the most annoying answer is like, oh, just train for 5 more years, but it is also the most accurate answer.
No, totally. Some other things you can do, and you're likely if you listen to this podcast, you're probably already doing some of this stuff, but you could do strides. You can do things that work on your coordination and especially on the neuromuscular side of things.
Yep.
So like strides, 5K, 10K work, all of that stuff helps to build your efficiency as a runner, making your strides smoother and more efficient. That if you get very good at that, that's going to trickle down to how you run when you're running at an easier pace, which is then when you're running in a fatigue state, all of that becomes more efficient. So yeah, of course we want to build a really strong aerobic engine, and the stronger that engine, the more durability you're going to have. But how efficient that engine runs also matters a lot too. Strength training can help, strong muscles can put out more power for longer. That can help with durability and warding off some of that neuromuscular fatigue. And then, of course, like, don't overtrain before race day. Like, go into your race fresh and ready. If you go into your race like a little under recovered, well, that's going to come out to play likely in the second half of that race.
If you have the choice between being 100% prepared or 100% healthy, be 100% healthy. Because prepared and unhealthy doesn't mean jack shit.
Note for me with my taper tantrum.
With your ass
piriformis
spasms.
Spasms. My God.
The assonance is too good. I have to use it.
Oh, okay. Fueling and hydration related fatigue when your energy runs out. Okay, talk to us about glycogen depletion, hitting the wall.
Yeah, glycogen depletion, that's often referred to as hitting the wall or bonking. And that's what happens when you don't have enough carbohydrate intake before or during the race. So that will feel like sudden extreme fatigue, brain fog, hitting some brain. I might be bonking. Am I bonking? No, I literally just ate a carton of cream cheese. Not cream cheese. What is the other? Cottage cheese, not cream cheese.
Cottage cheese. I was like, you're eating cream cheese now?
Savage.
My
That'd
God.
be so awesome.
My God.
Sitting here eating cream cheese, no bagel.
Heard it here first.
Amazing.
Folks. Carton of cream
Health
cheese.
influencer. A whole carton.
Wow.
So, sudden extreme fatigue, brain fog, and feeling like you're running through molasses. So, one thing we always really want to think about is that pre-race carb loading. That doesn't mean you just eat spaghetti the dinner before your race. This is something you want to be doing in the week and days leading up to your race. So, that usually looks like between 8 to 12 kilograms of body weight and the 20 kilograms 8 to 12 grams of carbohydrate per kilogram of body weight in the 24 to 48 hours before your race.
If you're me, you just calculate this in packages of Abe's mini muffins.
Your go-to for carb loading is mini muffins. I really like lemonade because I find it really easy to even get this stuff in, like no fiber, just go straight to the source,
Yeah.
all carb.
Absolutely.
I also do love a good muffin. So you also want to make sure that you're consuming 60 to 90 grams of carbs per hour during the race, and that you need to train your gut if you're not getting up to that 60-gram threshold. Some people might have success with higher, but again, that's something that really needs to be individuated. High carb fueling is not a silver bullet for all athletes, and is a strategy that needs to be used judiciously in training and trialed many, many times. And some solutions for that glycogen depletion are choosing fast digesting fuel like gels, chews, or sports drinks. When you're bonking, an avocado sandwich is not going to do a lot of good for you.
All right.
Beef jerky, not going to pull you out of a bonk.
Dehydration and electrolyte imbalance.
Yep.
Okay. See this a ton. Often,
Yes.
and sometimes it's hard to distinguish between whether or not an athlete wasn't getting in enough fuel, or whether or not they were having issues with their electrolytes or their fluid intake, and that was causing some of that breakdown and slowing down. So, what can we control here? We can definitely control how many grams of carbs we're eating an hour, and we can check that off the list. And the more of this stuff that we get familiar with, and we can just say for sure, okay, I was on top of that for X number of hours during my race or X number of hours during my training. You can isolate then parts of this to understand why you're starting to slow down and then address those issues. So like dehydration is one of these really complex issues, because if we don't know your fluid losses and we don't know the concentration of the sodium that is coming out in that fluid when you're sweating, we don't really know how much you need to consume to stay on top of this.
Correct. And the big challenge is that being dehydrated and hyponatremia, which means having too much water relative to sodium, those symptoms look shockingly similar. And not taking in enough salt and taking in too much salt, those symptoms are also shockingly similar.
Right.
And the upsetting truth here that I would just love everyone to meditate on at length today is that you are a wonderful, beautiful human snowflake, and your sweat loss and electrolyte profile will be just as lovely and special and unique as your mother always told you that you are. And you should adapt your fueling plan accordingly, because I am like so fucking tired of seeing athletes be like, yeah, I just, I read on Reddit that I only need 400 milligrams of sodium, so I'm just going to do that, despite the fact that I always end up throwing up on my shoes.
I mean, honestly, spend the $200 on a test. It will
save you thousands of dollars on the back end.
It is a total game changer. And here's why. Like, we have some of the signs of this: dizziness, muscle cramps, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, declining mental focus. I mean, it's basically all the stuff you don't want to have in any race of any length, period. Like, all of this stuff will derail your race. So, solutions, sweat testing.
Use electrolytes, especially in hot and long races, and use the appropriate amount of electrolytes. Make sure that it's a comprehensive part of your fueling plan. If you're not getting in enough electrolytes, that's going to really diminish your ability to absorb carbohydrates. If you're not fueling enough, then your hydration isn't going to be that efficient and not going to matter that much either. So train with your race hydration plan so that your gut adapts as well. Your hydration, in addition to, again, like, if you're not getting enough sodium, like, straight up your brain and heart can fail. So don't do that. And it will, again, like, that will also impact your neuromuscular efficiency. It will impact your ability to absorb and metabolize carbohydrates. So many of these problems of like, why do I feel like absolute dog shit at the end of my race, are interrelated. And again, as lovely and unique as you are.
So we talked a little bit already about some of that GI distress. And we haven't really touched yet on this concept of poor fuel absorption, which can also lead to having issues. So you can be fueling quite well. You can be on top of your game with your hydration and know just how much you need. But you can have trouble assimilating that into your body for a variety of different reasons.
I feel like this is something I see a lot with athletes that are like, I just want to eat orange slices and watermelon at aid stations. And it's like, girl, you can only absorb so much fructose at a time because fructose has to go through your liver to be metabolized, whereas glucose is ready to fucking rock the second it goes in your mouth. So, but I mean, again, looking at fuel sources that are like a 1 to, or a, yeah, a
2-to-1.
2-to-1 glucose fructose ratio. That way you can maximize those different carbohydrate absorption pathways. But just watermelon is not gonna cut it, sweetie, unfortunately.
So what you're talking about here is poor nutrition choices.
Correct. Yeah. So things with like too much fiber, inappropriate macronutrient content exceeding 8 to 10 grams of protein at a time, dehydration, potentially going too hard, like your effort is inappropriate relative to your fueling plan and how you try, like how hard you ran in training while fueling. So the signs of this can feel like stomach cramping, bloating, nausea, or urgent bathroom stops. And again, a lot of this can also be caused by that electrolyte imbalance, by eating too much fiber during your runs. You know, I've seen people eat hamburgers I'm always amazed at people who eat like bean burritos during races because
there's no way that doesn't create a quick dash to the bushes.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fiber.
It's a lot of fiber.
Protein.
So
a lot of fat.
Yep. Some more solutions here are to train your gut to handle race day fueling and to gradually increase your carb intake in training and avoid high fiber or fatty foods pre-race. Again, we want to make sure we have a nice, lovely macronutrient composition in daily life, but you don't need to eat a giant salad the night before your marathon.
I really think, and this is something that Kylie talks a lot about, who is one of our coaches at Microcosm and also is one of the best registered dietitians in a sports context in the entire country. She always talks about changing up that macro composition 24 to 48 hours out from the race.
Yeah.
And that window is different depending on the duration of the race. So if you're a marathoner, you know, maybe 24 hours before is more appropriate. But if you're running 100, you want to shift gears maybe even further out than 48 hours. And you might even want to start the carb load even earlier in the week. And there's a lot of nuance to this, so it's really helpful to take a deep dive, and you could join one of Kylie's classes. She has group sessions where she talks all about this kind of fueling.
Join her flight collective for a very low monthly fee. You get one-on-one access with Kylie, you get access to her master classes, and you get to join this really cool community of athletes who are excited about fueling. I pay for the flight collective, and I like it. Not just because Kylie is my work wife.
It makes a huge difference, though. I mean, to go to a race and to be confident in that and knowing your stomach's not going to cramp.
Yeah.
You're not going to bloat. Obviously, you know, you mentioned that these things are affected by other parts of the system, right? Like if you go too hard, what happens? It diverts blood from your GI system out to your skin to help keep your core temp low in order to help you, and to the muscles to help maintain the effort. So that blood is gone. It's no longer in your GI system. You pour a lot of carbs on top of that. Or a lot of fluids.
Or a lot of cheeseburgers.
A lot of cheeseburgers. That's going to cause issues.
Yeah.
So it's not, I mean, this is really, when we discuss nutrition in this context, it really is a multifaceted conversation. There are multiple things that every athlete has to be taking a look at. It's not just what you're eating and what you're drinking. It's also how fast you're going. It's also the environmental conditions. How hot is it? How cold is it?
Your fitness.
Yeah, your fitness, your stress levels. I mean, there's just so much, right?
Yep. Being fit, very helpful for all of these things. Like
yes.
The answer no one wants. Years of training and practice.
Oh my gosh.
And I think, again, when we talk about trialing your nutrition and hydration strategies before race day, I think a lot of times athletes will be like, great, in like my 2 longest runs, I'll make sure I do exactly what I want to do on race day. Girl, no. I want you doing it in every long run of the build. Even if it's only 12 miles, let's start rocking whatever fueling for your next event. So we're doing this Chianti race, which is on the 16th of March. It is currently the 11th. Holy no, it's the 22nd. I was like, wait, Oh, I don't know where I am or what day it is. Time is a flatbread pizza. But I have been since January 2nd, I have been trialing my adapting and iterating and practicing my nutrition plan for this race.
Yeah.
All of 2025. Every single long run of 2025.
I mean, I've never not been.
I don't always do in my not off season, but when I'm not this fall when I was doing more adventure runs and wasn't training for a race, I had a lot more Sour Patch Kids in my vest.
This is where I hit the N of 1 button.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, I think that it's I think it is fine. I do a lot more foods that I think are fun, so I'm still meeting my carb goals, but are less just performance oriented. So I love Cliff Shot. I like the taste of Cliff Shot blocks, but I don't like racing with them. But I like training with them when I'm not necessarily laser focused on a specific race.
I bet you that actually, okay, now we're going a little off the cuff here, but I bet you that diversity of fuel sources and different kinds of stuff is probably a net benefit for your GI system.
Also, after Leadville, I could not eat potatoes or anything that tasted like lemonade for 3 months. So there's also that. Anything that was yellow, I was like, oh, flashbacks.
You do get an aversion to it, for sure. All right, let's talk a little bit about mental fatigue when your brain says no mas.
So let's talk about the central governor theory or brain-induced fatigue. And if you really like nerding out about this stuff, I would highly recommend the book Endure by Alex Hutchinson. He's one of my absolute favorite writers and journalists. And he explores this theory at length. So central governor theory. So this is the cause of this is when your brain limits your effort in order to protect the body from extreme stress. So that will be loss of motivation, the mental checkout, the self-doubt of I could run this hill, but maybe I better just walk it. And so some solutions to think about here are to, as much as we train our bodies, you also got to train your brain. Work on mental resilience drills. And here I really like athletes to use things like visualization and positive self-talk. In our Slack channel, sign up for our Foothills tier for less than $10 a month. You get access to all of our coaches via Slack and my incredible handwritten journal prompts. This morning's journal prompt was I prompted our whole team to reflect on the power of mantras in training and racing. And my favorite mantra, when I need to show the central governor who is boss, is to make the choice. And to me, that means when I'm encountering a tough, at the end of Leadville, when there's all these fucking punchy little grindy uphills and you just want to be done or dead in a ditch and not running uphill anymore at mile 98. Dear God, why is the course like this? I reminded myself to make the choice to run because it was a decision to walk. It was not literally physically impossible for me to run. It was a choice. And so when I can sense that there is a choice, I actually find a lot of power in reminding myself that I can make a choice here.
Yeah. Oh, so good. All right.
Also, break the race into smaller, manageable segments, going aid station to aid station, different segment of the marathon, and use process goals throughout your event as well, instead of just time goals. So this could be things like stay relaxed through mile 10, smile at every volunteer I see, wave to all the spectators lining the course.
Fuel every 15 minutes.
Fuel every 15 minutes. Having those little checkpoint goals help you stay engaged when outcome goals don't.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Poor pacing strategy. I think this is also
pretty intuitive.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious what this is, but it's incredible the amount of factors that can cause athletes to get off of their pacing strategy. And so, okay, starting too fast. That's normally the thing that we see most in this situation is just burning the candle way too early and not being cognizant of the fact that you've got a long way to go. This is the same for any race, any distance. The shorter the race, the quicker you can burn that candle, but the longer the race, the more slowly it needs to burn. Signs?
Our friend Peter Bronca likes to use don't burn the marshmallow.
Don't
for
burn the
his
marshmallow.
for his marathon
Just
coaching
keep it
clients.
lightly toasted.
Yeah, you want to keep it golden brown, which is not how I make s'mores, but it is how I run marathons. So
That might be how I try to run
Yeah.
Chianti. I like that idea.
like a golden brown,
Yeah.
perfect marshmallow.
Trying.
Yeah.
That's hard though. There's not much room for error.
When I make a s'more, I stick my marshmallow directly into the blue flame, which is a very poor marathon strategy.
And it tastes bad.
No, it tastes awesome.
Tastes like char. It's
I
so
like
gross.
that.
You like that?
Yes.
My gosh.
It's like gritty. And I want the marshmallow to be like liquefied on the inside.
It does have a nice soft inside when you do that.
Yeah.
But the key is to pull that char off and get the goodness on the inside.
I like the char. I
You're
know it's
crazy.
not good for
You're
me.
crazy. All right. Some signs of this. Feeling amazing early and then suddenly falling apart.
Love it. Who hasn't been there?
Yes. Yes, we have all been there. It's important to experience that in order to know where your limits are.
And to never do that again. When was the last time you blew the fuck up in a race? Show up and blow up.
Show up and blow up.
I think
Probably
of
I
San
don't
Juan
know.
Summer Solstice 2023. That was a
Yeah.
great show up and blow up on my
Show
part.
up and blow up. Power 4 2019 maybe.
Ooh, great show up and blow up.
Yep, that was pretty. That taught me some good lessons. I don't think I've blown up. I've been like on the other side of that for a while.
Yeah.
Show up and protect yourself.
Yeah.
Don't go for it too
Yeah.
hard. You might blow up if you do.
Start slow and fade.
Okay, solutions start slower than you think. I sometimes am like tell athletes like start at a 4 out of 10 RPE. Start at your recovery effort feel and work into it. Like especially if it's a longer race like an ultra or something. Just you can't start too slow.
Yeah.
Everybody, you've got the energy of the moment and all this stuff building up. Everybody ends up running those first few miles a little too quick anyway. So holding yourself back can help you tremendously from slowing down significantly later. You could also try to like aim to negative split. So like purposefully being at a lower RPE.
And this is more for marathon. Like Nick Curry showed us you can negative split a 100 miler, but that's not a strategy I encourage athletes to adopt.
I mean, it is pretty tough to do that for sure. And that guy's one of the best in the world. But, aiming to do that could even in a long ultra set you up for success. Knowing that your pace will degrade.
Yeah.
Because a lot of this stuff, the best training in the world, these are still just really long events and you're pushing your body to its limits.
Yeah. But we also want to share solutions for our like marathoners, half marathoners, everyone on the team.
Well, this I think is why practicing your race strategy across all distances really matters. So like marathoners, spending time running at marathon pace, incorporating that into your long runs. For on the other end of the spectrum, the ultra runner, making sure that you do some of your long runs at a similar effort level that you'll race at. And really being diligent about that. If that means slowing down some of those long runs because your race is a lot longer than those long runs, slow them down. Boot camps are really great for that.
Yeah. If you're training for Cocodona and you're running all your long runs like a half marathon, you're going to have a bad day. Don't do that. Let's talk about external stress and race day anxiety. So the causes here are going to be mental burnout, nervous energy, race pressure. So the signs of that are going to be feeling exhausted before the race even starts, racing on emotion instead of strategy, going off vibes, which we don't encourage. So the solutions here are going to be dial in that pre-race routine to stay calm and in control. Get your shit done several days before the event, so it's not like 9 o'clock at night, the night before your marathon or before Cocodona, and you're like, oh my God, where's my hip belt? I don't know. Use breathwork and mindfulness techniques for your stress management, and remind yourself, races don't define your worth as a runner. Training is the test, and racing is the celebration.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. We did a little podcast on some of those mental tools recently, so I'd encourage athletes who are listening to check that out and start to use some of those tools. All right, what are we concluding here? This has been a long-winded discussion.
Yeah, as people can see, why do I feel bad at the end of a race is very complicated. We're talking about hydration, nutrition, mental fatigue, central nervous system fatigue, muscular fatigue, acidosis, skeletal breakdown, like all of these things. Like it's a very tired is a big word and it can mean a lot of things. And this is where I just can't help but plug the value of having another human who is not an AI to figure out what is your specific struggle at the end of an event? Because this is something I talk about a lot with athletes. And oftentimes, again, they'll always think like, oh, maybe I need to strength train more. And I'm like, actually, you mentioned only taking in one gel at mile 22. Might that be the cause rather than not doing enough lunges?
Right.
Sometimes maybe it is the lunges, and always trying to identify like what is the actual problem here. Let's talk about what actually happened in your race. Let's talk about what specifically happened that led to that fatigue, how it felt, and then let's talk about how we can integrate solutions into training that fits into your life. And so it's important for athletes to train for the specific kind of fatigue that they struggle with most.
I also want athletes to really stick to a specific pacing plan. So there's a lot of work we can do on the mental performance side of this to understand what are the factors that are going to prevent you, or the points of friction that are going to prevent you from sticking to that plan. Is it what's happening in the environment? Is what's happening internally? There's so many things to discuss there, but if you can't stick to your plan, it's going to be pretty hard to feel good at the end of a race.
Yep.
Or to have a race that you feel proud of, or you feel good about. So really, really important. Another great key point to this is fuel early and often. Waiting until you're hungry or thirsty, it's already too late. So you've got to develop a fueling plan that's right for you, that fits
Correct.
your individual needs and helps you get the results you want.
Yeah, and strengthen your mind as much as you do your legs. Mental fatigue can be trained just like muscles.
Love it. Love it. So finishing strong isn't just about fitness. It's about strategy, patience, execution, and a myriad of other factors. Hope you guys took something from this conversation.
Train consistently for 5 years. It's my number one tip.
It's the best advice you can give somebody for all 100% of those factors.
Correct. There's very few problems that just years of solid training can't solve. I know that's not what we want to hear. No one tunes into the podcast like, hot tip, just train.
But it's what you need to hear.
But it's what you need to hear. And that's why you come to us. Dozens of you.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you again in a couple weeks. And in the meantime, check out some of our old goodies here that we're going to repost while we're in Italy. I really appreciate you. And if you've made it this far, hit the like button or review us. We would really appreciate it. Want to continue to expand our network and bring more athletes into the conversation. Reach us at microcosmcoaching@gmail.com or microcosm-coaching.com.